2022 will go down as a year of extremes in some parts of the country, but what about in our area? Our meteorologist Robert Suhr is back with us now to recap the weather over the last year. Well, that's a lot to cover.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. There'll be a test at the end of the show, so keep that in mind.
Boy.
But
all
yeah,
right,
we had a lot of wild weather this year, a lot of rain. We had some snow thrown in there, severe weather. So with today being the first of the year, I figured, well, let's go back and take a look at how we did precipitation and temperature-wise. First, we'll start just in December, which is what I always do around the first of the month. So regionally in December at XNA, we were actually all three major reporting stations, we were above average temperature-wise in December, despite the extremely cold weather that we had come through right around Christmas time, right about where we should be at XNA in Fort Smith, slightly above average there at Drake Field by a couple of degrees. Precipitation-wise, about the same thing. We were basically right on average. Drake Field recording nearly an inch of snow, a trace in Fort Smith. They don't keep snowfall observations at XNA, so just precipitation-wise. Now, as we broaden it out, we'll take a look at how we're doing snowfall-wise for the year. Already 3.7 inches at Drake Field, above the average of 1.7, which is where we should be at this point of the season. Highest we've had was in 1977 with 8 inches, and this time last year, yeah, hot zero, nothing yet, but snow was on its way. It turned out to be a pretty snowy January and February. Now, as we look at the year overall, here's where we stood. Our average temperature throughout the entire year at Drake Field was 59.3, which is above average. Slightly, a little bit warmer than last year as well. I think we were 1.5 degrees above average last year, so about 2 degrees. And remember just how horribly hot that summer was. But in terms of precipitation, second year in a row, we were pretty well below average with the precipitation at Drake Field, despite some of the intense rainfall. It seemed our rainfall came in big chunks where we'd get 6 or 7 inches in a day, and then we go a month with nothing. So 41 inches at Drake Field. Average is just under 47 inches. Now, when we talk about temperatures in Fort Smith, just barely above average, despite the oppressive summer that we had in Fort Smith. 63.2 was our mean temperature for the year. We should be at 62.5. And in terms of precipitation, Fort Smith was the other end of the spectrum. They had more rainy events, so they finished well above average for precipitation. Despite being in a drought for a long part of the year, 56 inches, just over for the year precipitation. That's rain and snow. If you melt the snow down, we were 8 inches. Now, when you look at some of the oddball numbers for Drake Field, 72 days we were at or above 90 degrees. That is well above last year's. We spent 105 days where at some point the temperature was below 32 degrees, and 11 days we had temperatures soar above the century mark. That is the 5th highest total all time as far as records go back, 11 days. It's even more staggering when you look at the River Valley. 100 days, Fort Smith was at or above 90 degrees. 81 days, they were below 32 at some point. 34 days at or above 100 degrees. 34. That is the 7th highest total ever. And those days at or above 90 degrees, Paul, in July, Fort Smith had 3 days. That's it. 3 days in the month of July where highs were not at or above 90. They actually cooled off with temperatures in the 80s. Now, what does 2023 bring? Well, we just don't know yet. We're still in that La Nina pattern. We'll see what that brings us, and you'll have to tune in this time next year for the answer.
34 days above 100. I think I remember every one of those days.